Welcome, everybody, to Bill's Forehead. Now, welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I am your handsome host that needs a haircut, the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. In the upper left corner, we got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cuttrell.
What's going on, gentlemen? How y'all doing this fine Wednesday evening?
I'm all right. I'm pretty all right. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm pretty good. We got a lot to get into today. Ton. I can't wait to talk about it. But before we do, Uncle Shally, Scholastic Shally, Mr. William Shallcross. How you feeling tonight?
Victorious Shally is feeling great tonight.
What's Victorious Shally for?
Well, I was victorious on Saturday.
Oh, we're talking about that, guys.
I know.
You're already
on your next team already. I understand.
I've already moved on. Go Georgia. Go Texas. I'm kidding, guys. Seriously, I'm kidding. I joke around about that a lot. It's fun, but Fire Franklin is still in effect. They fired their OC, which was cute.
Nutty.
It's the worst cop-out move ever. But it's neither here nor there.
Well, it's obviously the offensive coordinator's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't won versus Michigan or Ohio State since the Reagan administration, but it's the offensive coordinator's fault.
Yeah, same thing happened in the NFL. So
wasn't Franklin's choice to go for two for no reason, or when you do go for two, run a gimmick play. It had nothing to do with any of that.
I mean, maybe it didn't. Maybe Franklin didn't choose that. I'm kidding. Listen, Penn State, we'll talk about the recap about NCAA football. You can get a full breakdown on Coast to Coast. I'm already sick of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. And I wouldn't say you were a winner Saturday. Your coach is a cheater. He's suspended forever. He'll never be back.
It'll be last for about 2 more days.
He's going to the NFL.
He's not.
He's done with you guys. He said, I'm done my cheating ways. I'm headed to the NFL. By the way, I'm rooting for Ohio State this year.
Imagine losing to a team with no head coach.
Well, I mean, both teams have no head coach, if we're being honest.
It's fair.
All right, but we got a lot to get into today. We got the NFL action, NCAA football, obviously. If you want a full breakdown of NCAA football, you got to tune in Saturday to Coast. Those guys are on absolute fire. We got a little UFC breakdown. Cottrell was dead right on one of his predictions. I was dead right on the other. We went against each other on the 2 main events. And I knew Yuri would get nuts and Alex Pereira would just light him up. And you were dead right on the co-main event. However, we also have our Wire2Wire most hated current players/coaches, top 5. We will all give those at the end of the show. You have to be here for that. My man Alex, what's popping, is in the chat already. If you're in the chat, say what's up. We miss you. We love you. Here we go. Let's talk about some NFL action. I don't know how much topics you want to get into to recap the previous week, but what I do want to talk about is the situation going on in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is now out for the season. I know the reports are coming out. He's devastated. He wanted to play and fight against the will of the doctors. I don't know. I just think it's the worst trade in NFL history. NFL history. They traded 3 first-round draft picks to overpay a quarterback who's now going to be missing in action for a second straight year. Your thoughts, Cottrell? You don't think he's overpaid? You don't think it's a bad trade? Wouldn't you rather be another? You know what? Would you rather be in Houston's situation right now or Cleveland's?
That's a great question.
Well, considering the fact that I knew C.J. Stroud was going to be the best quarterback in this class, I said it from the jump. I mean, that's definitely a great question. Knowing that C.J. is healthy, obviously on the rookie deal, I probably would say Houston's position. But let's not get it twisted. Kind of knew that this question was going to be coming. Knew we were going to talk about this. So let's squash these fake narratives and this propaganda. Let's just squash it now. So Deshaun Watson this season, he's 5-1 as a starter. Now you may look at his numbers and say, well, hey, the defense is great. The defense is this. The defense is that. Well, let's take it a step further. Then let's just go to that Ravens game specifically. So obviously, in the second half, probably his best half as a Brown. He was 14 of 14, 150 total yards, had a touchdown, led the game-winning drive. This season, though, just looking at the numbers, this season as a whole, if you look at his performance in the fourth quarter, 80% completion percentage, and he has a QBR of 147.4, both are first in the NFL so far. So you could look at the game as a totality. You could look at it as, his numbers aren't where they were as they were in Houston. The man has been clutch when he's on the field in that fourth quarter. Not to mention, you talk about his will, him not wanting to play this, that, and the third. That's perfectly fine. I get it. It's fun to talk about. Don't like the guy. It's just.
I don't. I make no bones about it.
So I completely understand that. But the fact of the matter is, the man broke his bone in his shoulder in the second quarter, and also had a high ankle sprain in the second quarter. Not only did he say, "Hey, I want to play," he went out there and performed even better than he did in that first half. So the man obviously wants to play football, and I mean, it's just one of those things where that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. So talk about the money all you want to. I get it. It's only been 2 seasons, though. Man hasn't even played 16 games yet, so I don't know how we can be talking about this being one of the worst trades ever. 3 years from now, maybe, maybe we can talk about, hey, looking back on it, Cleveland, they have nothing to show for it. But if my memory serves me correctly, there's plenty of other guys that are getting paid north of $200 million, and they don't have anything to show for it either. So
did they have to give up 3 first-round draft picks to pay that man $240 million?
Does it matter?
Yes.
Why?
It does.
Why? If you have nothing to show for it, whether you paid or you gave up first-round picks or not,
because they have a future.
Who cares? What's the future?
They still have 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that's NFL capital.
If they have nothing to show for it, it's great having those first-round picks. Look at all these teams that constantly make first-round selections. It's great. But if you have nothing to show for it, then who the hell cares?
There are a lot of teams.
Would you rather invest 240 and have nothing, but still have 300 million in the bank, or invest 240 and have nothing in the bank? Because one's Cleveland and one's the other teams that have 3 first-round picks.
Houston comes out of this trade smelling like roses. They got D'Amico Ryans, they got Will Anderson Jr., they got CJ Stroud. They're on the come up, they're on the rise, they got cap space. The Browns have nothing to show for it. Andre Holiday in the chat already saying it.
It's nice to agree with Andre. Andre is the guy that I'll tell you before the year that Desmond Ritter is going to be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. So he's a little delusional. So
Trell keeps receipts.
Shots fired.
And Andre is also a Falcons fan that he wanted Deshaun Watson, and he's been upset because the Falcons, they couldn't take care of that deal. So again, I get it. I understand the national narrative, but when it comes down to it, Deshaun Watson has won his football games this year, and he just came off of his best half yet. So obviously it sucks not having him, and you're paying him all this money. He's not on the field this year. But, I mean, you still got 3 years left on that deal. If the Browns go off and have a Super Bowl run within these next 3 years, I don't care that we paid him all this money these first 2 years and he did nothing. Like, I could care less about that.
Okay, my follow-up question to that would be, he goes off and any of that stuff happens and we can look at the future and see that. You said he's won us 5 games this year. He says 5-1 as a starter.
Correct.
One could argue that the only game he won you this year was the Baltimore Ravens game. There's not another game in this season that I think that he won that a very average, capable quarterback couldn't have won. That defense is winning you football games, not Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson outplays Joe Burrow the first game of the year. Talk about him being hurt. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. He outplayed him the first game of the year. He had a great game against Tennessee Titans that nobody wants to talk about. Get it, the defense played great, but had a great game against Tennessee. The Ravens game as well. So I get that, you could talk about that defense being great all you want to. the fact is that we've had backup quarterbacks play 3 other games, and they're 1-2 in those games. So talk about them being average, just basic numbers and the defense being great, things like that. That doesn't always translate. So
when you say they're 1-2, who do you give the win to San Francisco to?
PJ Walker.
Okay, just so did they?
Deshaun Watson didn't play that game.
They lost the other 2?
Correct.
Okay. Just check. Shally, would you rather be in Houston's scenario or Cleveland's?
I mean, it's hard not to say Houston. I mean, because of the future. I mean, if you're going present, I mean, it's still hard not to say Cleveland because they do have a Super Bowl caliber roster, and they definitely have a Super Bowl caliber defense. They are in a win now window. And it's again, you're talking about ROI on him though. It's awful. I mean, you just have to be honest about it. He got suspended all of last year. He played 6 games this year, so you're 2 years in that you gave up the foreseeable future for, and you have 6 starts out of him. And then this year kind of makes it worse because they deferred a lot of money. His cap hit this year was only, I think, 19.3 or something. The next 3 years, he starts making like $63 million. So if this continues, he puts them in a bigger hole the next 3 years. But I mean, you have to look at it logically. I mean, Houston's situation is great for the future. I mean, that team's not winning the Super Bowl this year. And I don't think Cleveland is now
closer to a Super Bowl than Cleveland is.
I'm not going to say that. Not as we sit right now.
Yes,
currently
going forward.
With Deshaun hurt?
Going forward. So this year, next year, like in the next 5 years, I give Houston a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than I give Cleveland.
I would say if Cleveland doesn't get there next year, I mean, then obviously they're going to start having, their cap situation will be different, and they'll start making different moves. So I would say if they don't, make a serious run next year and maybe the year after that, then I think it sways firmly back to Houston because you're going to have, C.J. Stroud's going to be a third-year starter at that point. Will Anderson Jr., that whole young core that they have they're all going to be studs at that point. So right now, I think it's still Cleveland, for as we sit. But obviously, I mean, 5 years down the road, I'd rather be Houston with what they have and what they're paying their kids right now.
All right, but we got to move on. I don't want to not give Kittrell any chance to rebuttal. So 30 seconds, you.
I didn't say anything bad.
He's not even using it. He's not even using it. He threw the rebuttal out the window. He knows.
I don't have any rebuttal. I mean, there's no point. 3 years down the line, we'll see what happens. But right now, I mean, it's great that
you're a general
Cleveland
manager in
is
a franchise. You would take Houston, right? Just check.
Absolutely not. Browns have way more talent than Houston. They have so many pieces. Let's keep it real here. CJ Stroud is the reason why they're winning a lot of those games down there.
If you were a general manager and you were taking over, I take Cleveland. Houston, you would take Cleveland.
All right, here's
day.
All right, here's the better question. In 2 years, would you rather have Deshaun Watson or CJ Stroud?
CJ Stroud. He's still in the rookie deal.
That wouldn't have changed Cleveland's first round draft pick.
And it wouldn't have. That was Houston's pick. So
all right, so got it. Secondary question to recap. Nothing too crazy. We got to get into previews. But the Buffalo Bills have fired Ken Dorsey. He is the scapegoat for Josh Allen's play. Stephon Diggs. Now, I'm not going to call it Trevon Diggs. I'm not going to call it that. I'm not going to call it Trevon Diggs. Stephon Diggs using his brother as an outlet. Don't do that. Don't do that. If I wanted my brother to take something off social media, it would be off within 30 minutes.
I get it, but Trevon Diggs is a grown-ass man in the league. Like, he's allowed to tweet whatever the hell he wants to tweet. That's perfectly.
That's your brother.
Now, I'm not saying that Stephon Diggs isn't thinking it. Like, don't get me wrong, but Trevon Diggs is doing that all on his own. He has nothing else to do but sit around and watch football. He's watching his brother be miserable. I'm sure they talk all the time, and he's like, fucking hate it here. I'm not getting the ball. We're not winning. And so Trevon Diggs is going and tweeting, hey, we got to free my brother.
To me, that's words from Stephon Diggs' mouth himself.
I can't blame Stephon Diggs for another grown man tweeting it. Gene, if you came to me and you were complaining about, let's say you were complaining about, Bill or Alex, like on one of our shows, things like that, and I went off and tweeted, I was like, hey, we really got to go out and fix the show. Like, it's not It's not your fault that I went out and said it to everybody.
Control, take that down. You wouldn't take that down?
Depends on how adamant I felt about it.
Come on, bro.
Depends on how adamant I felt about it.
It's an extension of Stephon Diggs. That's what it is. Stephon Diggs did it in Minnesota, and he's now doing it again in Buffalo. And let me tell you this. When was Stephon Diggs a top 10 receiver in the NFL before Josh Allen? Also, sidebar question, because he wasn't in Minnesota. He was the number 2 to Adam Thielen, I need to remind you. Yeah. Second question, and I'll follow up with it. It's really simple. Second question, I'll follow up with it. It's really simple. What's a better situation for Stephon Diggs to go to that's realistic? You think Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes are going to take that money? They let Tyreek Hill walk. What outside of Kansas City, what's a better situation for him to walk into? Cincinnati doesn't have the money to let T. Higgins walk. Where he's not going to Philadelphia to have AJ Brown. Where's a better situation for Diggs to go to? Can't go to Miami. Tyreek Hill's making $30 million there. So if he wants to go, Dak Prescott, you're going to play opposite of CeeDee Lamb, complain about targets with him? What's the better situation? He needs to count his blessings that he has a quarterback that's a top 5 quarterback that throws him the ball 13 to 15 times a game. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
I just think it's ironic too. He didn't have big numbers Monday night, but last week he had 13 for 155 or something. I don't know where the complaining is. I mean, you look at any of these guys outside of, you look at CeeDee Lamb. Everybody's looking at him now oh my God, he's putting on monster numbers. Look at his numbers the first couple weeks of the year. He had no touchdowns. He was catching 5 or 6 balls for 70 yards. Who ever puts up 12 catches for 150 and a touchdown every week, minus maybe Justin Jefferson? That's it. There's one guy. Would you agree? Would you agree, Control?
I know you're a player advocate, but would you agree that Stephon Diggs is probably in the best situation he can be in right now?
Yeah, I mean, being with Josh Allen is a great situation. But with that said, do you not understand? We talked about Monday night's game, for example. He had 3 catches for 34 yards, and they lost the football game. Not only did they lose, but you had Dalton Kincaid drop a pass that he should have caught. You had Gabe Davis drop a pass that should have been caught, and that ends up being a turnover. And then at the end of the game, you lose because your team has too many men on the field. Now, I'm not saying that, you could just go off and pout. And this is Stephon Diggs' MO. So I'm not even saying that that's not the kind of guy that he is. My thing is, though, is that in this situation, I think it's justified if you're not winning football games. I think it'd be a completely different ball game if you were winning. But when you're not winning and you're not getting the ball and you feel like you're, a top 5 receiver, top 10 receiver in the league, I can understand your frustration.
Friends are around you. They call each other family, right? Friends are around you when things are going good. Family is around you when things are going bad. I'll tell you something right now about being a teammate. You don't find your good teammates and the guys that are locker room guys and leaders during wins. You find them during losses. And any level of sports you ever played in, the guys that step up, like the New York Jets had a players only meeting. They're still trying to salvage their season with Zach friggin' Wilson. I'd much rather be in that locker room than in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. And Ken Dorsey being the scapegoat for this is hilarious to me. I'm not saying that Ken Dorsey is doing a great job because Brian Dable obviously did a better job with Josh Allen. However, it's not Ken Dorsey making those terrible reads. It's not Ken Dorsey having 12 men on the field defensively. It's not Ken Dorsey throwing the ball to the Broncos every other play. It's not Ken Dorsey's fault that Josh Allen is a friggin' turnover machine.
I mean, the one wasn't on him, man. I mean, it literally went through freaking Gabe Davis's hands. That ball's got to be caught. I mean, James Cook fumbled twice. They got one of them was lucky. The other one, I mean, somebody else fumbled. 12 men on the field. You take any one of those 4 things away, they probably win the football game. So I do agree with you. I mean, none of that's on Ken Dorsey, but not all that's on Allen either. And again, like Diggs, this is just Diggs being Diggs, man. And that's where I lean with, and I agree with Gene. Like he's a creature of habit. He didn't like being number 2 in Minnesota, and he forced his way out of there. Went to Buffalo, had a great year with Josh Allen, got a huge extension, got paid, and now he wants to catch 13 balls every game. That's just not realistic in the NFL, man. It's just not. And you can argue about, you can say it's passion and wanting to win and everything else. That's fine. There's 51 other guys in the locker room that want to win too. Nobody wants to go out and lose on Monday Night Football to the Denver Broncos. You don't think Gabe Davis feels like shit for dropping that ball? You don't think James Cook feels like shit for fumbling twice? Like it's not all one person, and that kind of goes back to the Gene thing. They lost that game strict. Like if there was ever like a loss you would look at and be like, damn, they lost that game as a team. It was that game. And then on top of that, you have Will Lutz shank a field goal from 35 yards, and you give him another chance because you have 12 freaking men on the field. Like it's nuts, man. Like that's a team loss if I ever saw one. That's not a Josh Allen loss. I'm not saying it's a Stephon Diggs loss either, but like you can't point it at one person. Like there were so many mistakes all over that game. Like that was just a sloppy football game.
Sean McDermott loses his job at the end of the year.
I agree. I think they've settled for, I would say consistency. They win 10, 11, 12 football games every year, win one playoff game, run into Mahomes or Burrow and lose. I don't think that's going to cut it this year. I think anything short of a Super Bowl, I think he gets whacked.
I actually disagree. Only reason because I do think they are going to move on from Stephon Diggs this upcoming offseason. I think they're going to get some capital back for him. And then at that point, I think McDermott's going to say, hey, give me a full season where I can get, some of my guys. If I have to, I'll find somebody else to call the plays. If Joe Brady's their OC right now. So if Joe Brady doesn't work out, I'll find another OC, give me another year. Because I think right now their season is cooked. Like we all had them not making the playoffs this year. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. They had an opportunity last night. If they beat the Broncos, I think they give themselves a good shot. But if you were looking at their schedule as a whole before the year started, that was one of those games where you marked it off as a win and you probably didn't think twice about it. It was at home. It was against a Broncos team that's been struggling pretty much all season. And then you go out there and lay that egg. Not to mention for the rest of the season, they have the hardest remaining schedule out of anybody in the entire NFL. So, those are going to be games that they're going to lose. Obviously, defensively, they're not where we thought they would be at. Losing Trey White is obviously huge, but they're still not looking like that team. And, the reason, I feel like the biggest reason why I didn't expect him to make the playoffs is Josh Allen showed you who he was last year, the first year without Brian Dable, and he's doing the same things this year. Now, I get it. The pick wasn't his fault in that game, but him fumbling the ball, some of the decisions, the pick right before halftime, like that's 100% on him. That's a throw you can't make there. So it's just one of those things that I think is going to continue to unravel, but I do think they're going to give him another year to kind of right the ship.
I guess we'll find out. We got to preview some games with no better place to start than Thursday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. This game's in Baltimore. Who do you like in this one? Baltimore coming off that very huge letdown loss to the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati coming off a huge home loss to the Houston Texans. Joe Burrow was still playing well. Still played well in that game. He just got outdueled. The defense didn't stop Houston, and C.J. Stroud outplayed Joe Burrow. Call it like it is. Who do you like Thursday night? Cincinnati at Baltimore. Cottrell, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll go first here. I like Cincinnati to win this football game. I think the Bengals are in a spot where every game kind of feels like a must-win at this point. They are last place in that AFC North. It's an absolute bloodbath. And, with the Bengals, especially because of that slow start to their season, I think this is a game where they have to pull out all the stops to go out there and try to win. Because if you lose this game, then, that's 2 losses already in the division. You're already sitting last place. And so I think that this is a game that the Bengals are going to be ready for. I think they're going to go into Baltimore and they're going to find a way to win. I think Jamar has a big game. It's going to be huge not having T out there, but I think Joe Burrow is going to step up to the plate and go out there and gut out a win.
Shally, who you like in this one?
I'm actually going with my man Control in this one. I think this is almost a must win or kind of not a do or die. But I mean, it's this. If they lose this game, I think certain things they want to do or goals they had for this season are kind of out of reach. I think this would be a big lead in the division for Baltimore. Especially having the first one head to head in the pocket already. I like Cincinnati going and kind of like Cottrell said, gut one out. I think it's a really good game. Probably the best Thursday night game we're going to get this year, if I'm being honest. The loss to Teak, it could be, it could be, substantial, obviously, with the way they throw the ball. But it's just one of those things where I'm just going with my gut on this one. I think the game matters for Cincinnati a little bit more. Not that Baltimore's not a good team. I think Baltimore is. I think they're very good. I think they've won a couple games by the skin of their teeth, or they've had a lot of good luck this season. I'll say that, along with their good play, and that's a good combination to have. I like Cincinnati here. I think it's just a must-have for Cincinnati. I think it's another kind of those career performances you get out of Joe Burrow in prime time with everybody watching. A game they really need. I think Joey B goes out and does his thing.
Guys, I thought I was going to be on a ledge on this one. I thought you guys would both pick Baltimore in this one. I'm going Cincinnati also. I can't believe we're sweeping the board with the underdog. I like Cincinnati in this one. Give me Joe Burrow. It's beginning to be the middle of November. December, Lamar Jackson will start folding like a lawn chair like he does every single year. Give me Cincinnati in this one. There's no narrative.
It is narrative. What are we talking
about? So if it's a narrative, can you tell me how many wins Lamar Jackson has had in the month of December in the last 3 years?
I have well, last year he didn't play in December, so.
No, 2 years ago he didn't either.
Okay. So, again, narrative. If he's not playing, then, I don't know how you're going to hold that against him.
Doesn't win, gets hurt, won't play. Baltimore falls apart. I like the Bengals in this one. I think the Bengals win the football game, and I agree with Kyle. Baltimore goes into halftime with the lead, and the Bengals come back and win the football game. He's usually hurt by now. Kyle said it. I like the Baltimore Ravens to lose this one. I like the Bengals to win it. Next game on the docket, you got the sixth. No, if Cincinnati does win this football game, this is for the division. You got Kenny Pickett in the Pittsburgh Steelers, 6-3. Been outscored by a total of 28 points for the season. That's their total. They've trailed in every football game. They've been outgained in every football game, but they're 6-3. They're taking on Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the Cleveland Browns. This is an ugly football game. This game's going to suck. I think it's terrible to watch, but they're two 6-3 teams, and the winner of the game will be leading the division if Cincinnati wins the game Thursday. So I'll start with this one. I like Pittsburgh. I think TJ Watt, I think they'll get Minka back. They ruled Minka out.
As far as I know, I don't think he's practiced yet this week, but I don't think that he's been ruled out.
I think he did stuff on the side, no team activities. I think he's going to be game time. I think he's going to warm up and try to go, and then they'll probably make their decision then. That's my opinion.
I think the Steelers win this football game. I think the Steelers defense shuts down the Cleveland Browns. And I think Dorian Thompson-Robertson has a really tough time in this one. No DTR, no Deshaun Watson. I think it's too much for Cleveland this week. You lose your starting quarterback and your starting running back. I think it's the beginning of the end for Cleveland this year. It's doomsday in Cleveland.
I'm not going to say it's doomsday. I'm going to agree with Gene, though. I think Pittsburgh ekes out a win. This is another one of those games. I don't know what the over-under is, but I would hammer the under unless it's already super low.
32.5.
Probably taking the under. This game reeks
32.5. There's no games that have a better higher over-under.
Yeah, if this gets to 16-10 or something like that, I would be shocked. You have two really, really good defenses. Both top 5, top 6 defenses in the league. Two, DTR, we already talked about the backup with no Deshaun, no Chubb still. Not that he's coming back, but I think Cleveland's going to struggle to move the ball, and I know Pittsburgh's going to struggle to move the ball. So It's going to be, it's going to be an AFC North type of game. This is like it could be.
If you want to bet on a game that has no touchdown scored, this might be it.
If you really look at old school, middle of December, bitter rival, crappy weather football game, 2 yards in a cloud of dust all day long, that's what this is going to be.
Tell us why Cleveland's going to win, Kittrell.
So, I mean, I've been honest with you guys all season. When we talk about the Browns, I think we've had 3 games that we've talked about the Browns so far. First one was against the 49ers. Said they were going to lose that game. Ravens game, said they were going to win. This time, I'm going with the Browns win. And the reason for that is because I think they're going to be able to run the ball still effectively. Obviously, Nick Chubb isn't there. He hasn't been there all season, but they're still second in the league right now in rushing. I think that is going to be the key. That's how you get DTR to be, level and just make his job pretty easy. So I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively. And we've already talked about how bad that Pittsburgh Steelers offense is. I understand they keep finding ways to win the game, but if you go back to the first time they played, that was a game where the Cleveland defense the Cleveland offense gave up 2 touchdowns to Pittsburgh, and it was the same game Nick Chubb got hurt. So I think the defense is going to be the part of the team that we rely on. I think they hold Pittsburgh to 10 points or less in this one, and I think the Browns are going to come out on top, tight game. Maybe it's a walk-off field goal. Maybe it's, we were up 3 and we ultimately get a 4th down to seal the game. But I think it's tight. Definitely think low scoring, but I think the Browns are going to come out on top to split.
All right, well, the last game that we have to preview this week before we get in a little bit of a pick 'em is the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Kansas City. The top 2 teams in football playing on Monday Night Football. This is our best Monday Night Football game of the year. This is game of the year written all over it. This is Super Bowl rematch. I would love to go last on this one. So Kittrell, being the non-Eagles fan, that's why I let you go last in the Browns game. I want you to start us off. Tell us why the Chiefs are going to beat the Eagles, because you love picking against us in big games.
I'm usually right too.
Oh, really?
But
how'd Miami do?
I didn't.
I picked Miami over Philadelphia.
I'm talking about the Super Bowl. I picked Kansas City.
Whoa! There's no need for you to bring that up.
Hey, I'm just saying.
You picked the Dolphins over the Eagles.
But outside of that, though, I picked the Eagles pretty regularly.
I'm kidding, bro.
But yeah, I'm going with Kansas City here. I mean, I think this is a game that the Eagles have clearly had circled on their calendar. And I think they're going to be ready to go coming off that bye. But I mean, I think the same thing with Kansas City and them coming off that bye. I love that the NFL scheduled it this way. You give both teams a chance to put together a full game plan for 2 weeks, and it's the last game. And obviously all the built up animosity. But I ultimately just think that we know the record of Andy Reid when he's coming off a bye, and I think he's just going to be a little bit more prepared. And I think Patrick Mahomes is in that offense. They've been waiting for that game to get the offense clicking and back in sync. And so I think this is the game that everybody's amped up for. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be fireworks, just like how the Super Bowl was. I got the Chiefs ultimately winning 34-32, maybe an Eagles missed 2-point conversion to seal the game.
Shall we?
I'll be brief because I'm going to pick this game. I agree with Gene. I think it's the best. It's going to be the best Monday night game by far. This is the week that the schedule makers finally got something right. They got a good Thursday night game and a good Monday night game, especially after last week's debacle. It is.
Germany is pissed.
I think this is just as good a game as the Super Bowl is. I really do. I think both teams coming off a bye, being rested. I think the Eagles' bye came at the right time. I think they were kind of really nicked up and banged up a lot of different places. Giving Nick Sirianni 2 weeks to prepare. I know Andy Reid is great coming off byes. We always use that that sound bite when he's still coaching the Eagles and still rang true. Obviously, as he's gone to Kansas City, nothing's changed. So I think I expect a very high level football game. I think it's a banger of a game. I'll tell you which way I think it's going to go. Pick them.
Well, Andy Reid is 21-4 coming off a bye, which is a very impressive winning percentage. But there's someone that has a more impressive winning percentage coming off a bye, and that is Nick Sirianni. He is 2-0 as a head coach coming off the bye, and I'll take 1,000% over 884. Give me the Birds on Monday Night Football. Look, I'll put it to you this way, right? The reason the San Francisco game scares me so much is because that is their Super Bowl. It's not our Super Bowl. It's theirs. The reason that the Chiefs-Eagles game should scare the Chiefs so much is that was our Super Bowl. We lost that Super Bowl to them, and revenge is spelled E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles. I got the Birds on Monday Night Football. I think they win the football game. I think they run up the middle with DeAndre Swift, and you see the real Swift take over in that football game. The real Kelsey-Swift combination of Jason Kelsey and DeAndre Swift. Go Birds. Let's get in there. You can boo all you want. You can only dream to have a franchise like we have.
Well, first off, I'm booing both Kelsey Swift. Any Kelsey Swift mention, I'm booing it. That's first off. Second off, I mean, I don't know what the difference is. You pay your quarterback $200+ million. He doesn't win you a Super Bowl. I paid mine $200+ million. He doesn't win me a Super Bowl. So we're in the same boat.
We paid our quarterback $200 million after he took us to the Super Bowl to take us to a Super Bowl.
He got us to one, and we didn't give him
one. And he hasn't won you one. I don't care. He hasn't won you one. Doesn't matter. He hasn't won you one. He hasn't won you one.
Who's in better shape, the Eagles or the Browns? Not even close.
Have you won a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback? The answer is no. We have not won with Deshaun Watson either, so we are in the same boat, my friends.
Not in the same boat. Have y'all ever won a Super Bowl?
Different paddles.
No.
You talk about Nick Foles. I get it. You got your one Eagles Super Bowl. I get it. You know,
hey, one is better than zero, brother.
I live high on it. You know, I don't bring up. I don't bring up.
The Browns win the Super Bowl.
I don't bring up about how LeBron won us a championship. You know, I'll never bring that up. And
you're not even a Cavaliers fan anymore.
I am.
You're for the Lakers. You
I
fraud.
For the Lakers. I get it. You don't have a championship, so you probably don't even watch basketball. Ben Simmons isn't there anymore. Who's going to be your new scapegoat?
Oh, we'll talk about Ben Simmons.
Who's your new scapegoat?
I don't have a scapegoat now. They're gone. Sixers win the championship this year, baby. Going all the way. All right, let's get into NFL pick'em, gentlemen. Look at this. Half a game back, ready to go. Shally is retaking the throne. It's going back and forth. But that's all right. 17-12 is still respectable, especially after starting 1-5. We'll do the math on that real quick. That's like 16-7. That's a great run for anyone. So let's go. Let's get in the pick'em. Shally, give us the order.
Yeah, Gene, before we move on. Yeah, do you remember that time the Eagles packed up and moved to a different city? Do you remember that?
Yo, there's no need for you to bring that up.
I just want to ask for the go.
Are you still a Ravens fan? Did you travel with the team?
You guys were supposed to be against each other this episode. Gene, your team lost this past weekend.
Bill was supposed to be
We're
hammering
not in football yet.
I don't care. You're not supposed to gang up on me. That's not what's supposed to happen right now. That's all I'm saying.
Professionally, me and Gene are brothers. We are united at the hip for professional.
I don't want to hear that.
Oh, me and you are brothers in real life too. You're my brother.
Yeah,
come on.
I don't want to hear
college
that.
Football, maybe not.
Not so much.
You guys disgust me right now, okay?
Sorry, man.
Let's hurry up and get to college football so I can be back on my island and you can hate each other again.
I can't imagine waking up and seeing moving tractor
trailers. I love how an Ohio State fan is hoping that a Michigan fan will hate the Penn State fan more than an Ohio State fan.
Yeah, because
I just don't get that.
I don't care about Bill and his team right now.
You got Tiny mad at you, Bill.
We're not worried
about Tiny mad at you, Bill.
Michigan yet. You know, we're worried about the game in front of us. I am offended, RJ. I'm very much offended, okay?
All right, let's get into the pick. What's the order, Shally?
I will let Cottrell lead off. Get a head start on getting this franchise back, and then we'll go Gene, and then we'll go May.
Oh, you're taking my anchor spot. I get it. I understand. It's all worth it.
All right, so my 3 this week, kind of all over the place, but the first one, I like Houston -4.5. at home versus Arizona. I think it's great that Kyler Murray came back, looked somewhat well in that game, was running the ball, looks healthy, moving around. But I think Houston is a team that's hot right now, and I think that they're going to continue the train rolling, and they're going to beat up on that Arizona team. Second game, I like the Jets +7 versus Buffalo at Buffalo. Look, I think Buffalo is a team that is waiting for it to all fall off the tracks. And the Jets are a team that play everybody hard, but they just don't find a way to win. So I think Buffalo guts out a game there again. I keep using the term gut out, but I think that's what happens. But the Jets keep that game close, and I think it's probably going to be a Zach Wilson turnover that ultimately dooms the Jets there. Last game I like the Cowboys -10.5 at the Carolina Panthers. Dallas is a team that beats up on bad teams all the time, and this is going to be no different. I think they're going to get after Bryce Young. They're going to make his life hard. And they're probably going to force a few turnovers there. And you're going to see Dak throw for 3, maybe 4 touchdowns in that game. And people are going to hop on the Dak Prescott for MVP train. And it's going to be way too premature and way too much overratedness. But I just think the Dallas Cowboys, they blow out that Carolina Panthers team.
Shally. Oh, it's with me. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Yeah.
I'm not the anchor. I'm used to being the anchor. This is a bad week for me, guys. I don't ever like to be on the chalk side of things. I'm not a chalk guy. Give me the plus points. That's how I've been so successful over the years in NFL Pick'em. This week, when I'm looking at my Pick'em, I grabbed 2 favorites and an over. You want to talk about a noob or a chalk pick? That's me right now. That's me.
Noob.
I'll start with this one. The New York Giants absolutely stink. And I don't believe that Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito, or any DeVito on this planet is going to beat Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders. Give me the Commanders -9.5 over the New York Giants. I think that's an easy win. I think the Commanders beat them by 50. The Raiders just beat them by 30. That Giants team is terrible. They are headed directly for the number 1 pick, which scares me because I believe Caleb Williams will be a New York Giant. Second on the docket. Guys, hell, it might have frozen over. I don't know why in the world the spread is this way. I think it's because they're a 4-5 football team. But give me the Chargers -3 at the terrible Green Bay Packers. Packers stink. How the Chargers can't win this game by more than 3? If the Chargers lose this game, you better officially get off the Justin Herbert boat, because there's no way they should lose this football game. I'll take the Chargers -3. And my easiest play this week, the Raiders are playing inspired football. Inspired. Antonio Pierce got that team playing fired up. The Miami Dolphins at home are the highest scoring team in the league. Give me the over 46.5 in Dolphins Raiders. That game might hit 60. Give me the Dolphins Raiders over 46.5.
You fell off that Green Bay wagon fast too.
I did. Hey, listen, when you lose for me, they lost me 2 parlays. 2. I'm done. Listen, my man Lyle, Archie the architect, filled in last week from coast to coast, is in the chat, said it's cold hard, you can't coach it. I get it. Archie, let me ask you a question real quick. The 2 games I told you that would happen. I told you the Raiders were going to beat the crap out of the Jets. We'll beat the Jets. And I told you your Jacksonville Jaguars were going to get stomped. You disagree with me both and made me bets. How did that work out? I love Lyle, though.
Yeah, all right. I'm getting into this. I'm going to start off with an easy one. I'm going to agree with Cottrell on this one. Dallas -10.5 Carolina. Carolina is all over the place. They are not playing any kind of cohesive football. Defense is not playing particularly well. The offense, Bryce Young is just struggling. There's no other way to put it. That team is not going to threaten that Dallas defense all day long and put up points consistently. Dallas is hot right now. Ever since the Eagles beat them, they've played well the last couple of weeks. Offense is clicking. And Cottrell mentioned the big thing. They do take care of playing bad teams. They beat up on bad teams. CeeDee Lamb is just cooking right now. I like Dallas huge in that game, -10.5. Second game, team that, we talked about the game earlier, but we didn't really talk about this team that much. They're 5-5 now. I'm going to take Denver -2.5 at home in Minnesota. They're starting to play better. Sean Payton is finally starting to get through to people. Defense is playing better. Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain looked great the other night. That's one of the reasons Stephon Diggs did not have a big game. And the offense is starting to look like, it's not prime Russell Wilson, but he's starting to make enough plays and move the ball. Javonte Williams looks like he's getting his burst back a little bit. The receivers are, look like they're all on the same page. Denver's always a tough place to play. Give me Denver -2.5 at home over Minnesota. Last but not least, Philadelphia +3 at Kansas City. Give it to me. I'll take it. I think the Eagles win outright. Like Gene said, this game has been circled all year. We're coming off a bye. We're going to go there healthy. I just think they're better. I don't think Kansas City's as good as they were last year. I think we're better. I think this is the first real complete game we get. I think our guys will be fired up to go there and make a statement and win. I think the Eagles come home 9-1. I like the Eagles +3 at Kansas City.
Feel you. All right, well, that's it for NFL. Lyle says, we at will, as the Jags, be back. We are 6-3 and in a good position to win and be a contender. Good teams lose at times. I don't disagree with you. I just think that was a bad spot for them. I mean, Chase Young and Nick Bosa coming around the edge looked scary. We got to see that in a couple weeks. But college football, here we are. We got ranked games, couple of them. There's a huge team that's on upset alert. Like I always tell you guys, if you want full in-depth coverage of college football from every angle, the College Football Eliminator, upset alerts, you got to tune in Saturday morning to Coast with Black Elmore and these two handsome gentlemen above me. However, we are going to do our breakdown as we usually do. But before we do that, we can't get into college football without talking about what happened this past week with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher is going to be paid a ton of money to not coach for Texas A&M. It's the largest buyout of a coach in the history of college football. Your thoughts on Jimbo, A&M, and where they'll go next? I know I've heard Brian Hartline earlier in the chat. I'm hoping we can get him away from Ohio State.
Yes, I mean, for me, I was definitely surprised to see that he got let go. Now, I understand that his time in College Station has definitely been underwhelming. Like, you can only go 8-4, so many years in a row before you get the boot. I just wasn't expecting it because Texas A&M had the #1 class in 2022. And those kids are going to be juniors next year. And the other reason why I wasn't expecting it is because people forget. Like, I understand, Max Johnson has played well this season, but Connor Wegman was their starting quarterback this year, and they lost him early on. So I was definitely surprised to see that they moved on when they did. Now, from what I understand of it, Jimbo didn't really have the best of relationships with those boosters down there. And those boosters at A&M are spending a ton of money on NIL for them to continuously have those great recruiting classes. So I understand it from their side of things. It's like, hey, we're not getting that return on investment with the money that we're spending. We're supposed to be beating Bama, LSU, all these teams, and we're going 8-4 every year, and we're playing in the AutoZone Bowl. So I can understand it from their perspective. Two names that I want to bring up that I think are going to be two of your finalists for that job. I think these are two guys that are familiar with A&M because they've been there before. The first one, I think it's pretty obvious, Mike Elko. We see what he's doing at Duke right now. That team has played inspired football. He was their DC in the past before he got that Duke job. I think that's a guy who boosters probably already have a relationship with, and I think that's going to be, somebody who they could potentially get behind. The other name I'll bring up is a guy who is jobless at the moment, but he was a guy who was at College Station in the past. About 10 years ago, he was on staff there, and I think this is the splash name that you could bring in to get those boosters on board. Gene, it's a guy you love to hate. That's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. I think Cliff Kingsbury is a guy that you could see potentially return to college, get that head coaching job, bring in some of those recruits, and just be the name, the splash name that A&M program loves to get after.
They'll ruin another program.
Agreed.
Don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, hey, that's what they do.
Mike Elko, I think, is interesting because obviously, like you said, he has ties to the program. Obviously, coaching there before. I don't know. I don't know if he's a big enough splash. I don't know if the boosters per se are going to or necessarily trust handing over that program to him. Yeah, he's had a great year this year with a Duke team that's overachieved. I mean, they're sitting there 6-4 now, and obviously a lot's going on there with injuries and everything. I don't know if that is a big enough move for them. Dan Lanning has already come out and declined it right away and got in front of it. I think Oregon is lucky that they're making that move to the Big Ten this year or next year, because if not, I think that was a conversation I think you would have to sit down and actually have to have, because
it's crazy to me to think that Texas A&M could be a better job than Oregon. No way in hell. I think
Money.
Texas A&M is a better job than Oregon.
It's money. It's not. Listen. I get it, but it's not a better job at Oregon when Oregon's now in the Big Ten. Staying in the Pac-12, I don't care how you slice it. SEC is a better job. It just is. There's very few to stay back. To stay back on. But again, I think with him moving, I think that's why he was like, going to the Big Ten. I'm happy staying with my kids. Like, he got away from it early. There's the Dion, there's Dion rumors that have gone out, kind of come back saying they're not interested. I don't think others. I don't put it past Dion for leaving, but I don't think they're going to offer him the job strictly because I think the boosters like to think they run the show, and I think that's was part of the friction with Jimbo, and the team. I think Jimbo was like, spend your money, get the kids here, but when they're here, you guys aren't going to have say in what goes on, on this team, day-to-day operations, stuff like that. And Dion would very much be the same way. So I don't think Dion is a candidate there. Brian Hartline thing gained steam today. I don't know if it's enough of a splash for me. I think it's actually a good fit, though. And I don't mean it derogatory towards Brian Hartline, because I think Brian Hartline is going to be a very good head coach. I'm on record saying that. He's young. He knows how to talk to kids. He's a great recruiter. And he obviously can coach skill positions, which is something Texas A&M needs. Texas A&M doesn't struggle because they're on their defense. They struggle because they struggle to score. In the SEC, you got to be able to score. So I'm not taking anything away from Brian Hartline. I just don't know if it's the splash factor, and that's because he hasn't been a head coach before. Obviously, taking him out of Ohio State would be a big deal. I don't know, but again, that name's come up a lot. I've heard the Urban Meyer stuff. I don't see that happening whatsoever. It's going to be interesting. But whoever takes that job, I mean, they're going to have to win fast. I mean, they just fired a guy to pay him $75 million to literally go home and sit on the couch. So
maybe they don't make a splash move. Maybe they underpay a guy to come in to not be a splash move.
And if they do decide to go that route, then I think Cottrell might be sad.
Okay,
because I think if you go that type of candidate,
I got the guy.
Right.
I got the guy for them, James Franklin.
Yeah, right.
Heading down there. I would hate to lose him at Penn State, but I think he's the guy. Right, send him down there. I'm kidding, guys. Talk about the rankings for a minute. Not much changed in the top 6 outside of number 1 and 2. I kind of thought that was going to happen after Georgia played a couple ranked games. They are undefeated on the season and back-to-back national champions. I think the committee punished them a little bit, having them number 2 to let them know that they had no real non-conference wins. They weren't scheduling any really tough games. Everyone talked about Georgia's cakewalk schedule. And also, they do have the game of the week, so why not put them number 1 with the game of the week this week versus Tennessee? Your thoughts on the swap of Georgia and Ohio State? Do you think it was warranted? Do you understand it? Do you agree with it?
I'm actually going to surprise you here and tell you that I'm not surprised. Me personally, I would have expected it to come after this week. Because I think if you stack the resumes up next to each other, I still think Ohio State's is a little bit better. I think they have 2 big wins. Georgia has 1. They'll have, presumably another one after this week if they take care of business with Tennessee. Ohio State still has a better strength of record and strength of schedule. So, you could, if you want to factor in an eye test, obviously you would say Georgia the last couple of weeks has looked better than Ohio State, but I I think they're interchangeable. I think at the end of the day, too, I don't think you can get too upset one way or the other because I don't think it matters because, either 1 and 3 or 2 and 3 play each other next week. So,
to be fair, wouldn't we say that Ole Miss and Missouri are better wins than Penn State and Notre Dame at this point? It's number 9 and number 12.
I think Penn State's better than both Missouri and Notre Dame.
I don't
Missouri
disagree
and
with
Ole Miss.
Who's better, who's not, but I'm talking about number 9, number 12, and
you're asking me. So if you're asking me between the two of them, I think Ohio State has the best win.
You're saying they have the best resume. I'm asking you, in the committee's eyes, do they have the best resume?
I think they do.
Okay.
Still, I mean, in the committee's eyes, the answer is no because they clearly put Missouri at 9 and they got Ole Miss at 13, and then you're looking at Penn State at 12, and then Notre Dame at 19. I think the biggest thing here is that, like, Missouri, outside of, I get it, they came off a good win against that Tennessee program, but it's really just these SEC teams beating each other, which is determining how good they are and where they're ranked. Like, Missouri has no business being ranked ahead of Louisville here. I get it. Louisville has a bad loss. The loss to Pitt, it's very bad, but Missouri has beaten Kansas State, who is 21. I get it, good win. They should have lost that game, but it's still a good win. And they beat a Tennessee team who hasn't beaten anybody yet either. I mean, Tennessee, if you look at their schedule up and down, I understand they only got 3 losses, but they haven't really beaten anybody either. The big games that they're in, they found ways to lose them. So I just think we're in this spot at this point in the season where the SEC bias reigns supreme, and, you get what you see. I do think Penn State, if you put them on a neutral field with Missouri, I think they go out there and beat them. I think the same thing with Ole Miss. Now, Notre Dame, I think they're the clear 4 here, but I do think Penn State would be the best win. But, Gene, to answer your question, I do think that Georgia has earned that number 1 spot. I said in our group chat, I thought that what Georgia did these back-to-back weeks, 2 ranked opponents, like, don't get it twisted. Although I do think Penn State's better, these are 2 good football teams. And it's not just them going out there and winning. It's how they did it. We finally saw Georgia at full strength on offense with Lab McConkey and Brock Bowers being on the field at the same time. And they were absolutely dominant there. And they were also dominant in the run game. So I think Georgia has earned that top spot. But I will say this, before we get too far into it, I think come the end of the year, the winner of that Ohio State-Michigan game deserves to be number 1 because that's clearly going to be the best win in the entire country. I know we're 2 weeks away from that, but I think they should keep that consistent and move the winner of that game to 1. But right now, I'm good with Georgia being 1.
Well, hold on for a second. I'm not saying it will be the best one or the worst one, but one of the things we also have to talk about is that one of the hottest teams in the country right now is Alabama. And if Georgia beats Alabama in the SEC title game, wouldn't that change your thought on? Listen, it might not be a better win, whoever wins the Ohio State Michigan game, but it could be right on the line of an equal win. And to be undefeated, back-to-back national champions, if they run the table and beat Tennessee and Alabama, there's not a world that you can say that either one of those teams should be number 1 over Georgia.
If Georgia beats Tennessee, Tennessee shouldn't be ranked anymore. And you're also, I mean, listen, we all know how limited Iowa is offensively, but I mean, whoever wins next week between Ohio State and Michigan, they're going to play Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, and they're going to get another ranked win there. So, I mean, it's, again, you're going to put it on paper. Michigan's either going to have a win against the number 2 team in the country, or Ohio State's going to win against the number 3 team in the country. Georgia's not going to have anything to match that. And if for instance, and again, either one of those teams, you're going to say either Michigan beat the number 2 team and the number, in Penn State, who was the only team in the top 5 in the, FPI, NSP to lose a game at home. To lose to another top 5 team. I think the resume is just better. So, I mean, it's not like the Big Ten is going to have anything to laugh at. I think it's going to match up I think they're going to be very close. It's going to match up very interesting.
And I think the other thing too is that those are going to be 2 separate weeks. So if you go like the week going into conference championship week, I would have a problem if Ohio State or Michigan weren't at number 1, depending on who won that game. Now, after the conference championships, I would be okay with, them moving. Let's say Georgia beats that Alabama team. I would be okay if they beat Alabama and then ultimately go back up to number 1. I know it's just, splitting hairs and it's just be a lot of back and forth movement, things like that. But, beating Tennessee And then I don't know who their last game of the year is. Comparing that to, Ohio State beating Michigan or Michigan beating Ohio State, I just don't think that would be comparable. And I think the other thing you kind of run into is depending on how much credit you give Georgia for beating that Alabama team, you kind of got to give Texas that same credit for beating that Alabama team. So, if you want to give Georgia their roses, things like that, come that last playoff spot, assuming you get Georgia, Big Ten team, Pac-12 team. If you're looking at Texas there, I mean, I think that the argument could be made for them as well.
Well, I'll say this, and I just want to kind of get my piece. I think that this would have been the perfect year for the first 18 playoff, because when you look at these rankings, there are 8 college football teams that you can think on any day could beat another college football team, and it's the top 8. And they're all right? There's nobody outside that top 8 that can compete with the top 8 in the country. So you have Alabama, who's been one of the hottest teams in the nation. They've been incredible. Jalen Milroe has came a long way from the way he looked versus Texas. He's starting to look like a true dual threat quarterback, doing it with his legs and his arm. Texas has Quinn Ewers back. They're gonna win the Big 12. They're gonna get their rematch. They might even get Oklahoma, because Oklahoma has been on a little topsy-turvy spin right now themselves. You have Oregon, who lost the game at Washington by 3 points in a game most people think they outplayed them. And then you have the 5 undefeated teams that have won every game, right? So you have 8 really good college football teams. By the end of the year, now losses will sort out at least 2 or 3 of them. But by the end of the year, you're going to have 1 or 2 of these teams sitting on the outside trying to make an argument for why they should be in the college football playoff this year. And you better believe it. Because if the college football playoff started tomorrow, an undefeated Washington team with a win over number 6 Oregon would not be in the playoff.
I'm going to address that real quick, though. I think
I'm glad because I got something to say on that too.
Because I think next week, if they handle business this week for the game we're going to talk about here in a second. Yep. I think if they win this weekend, I think you see that movement finally. I think it's going to be really hard to not put them in that 4 spot. I really do. And
a very tough game though. Oregon State has been incredible recently.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, but it's almost another top 10 win for them. And honestly, if you're Texas, you're hoping you're going to get Oklahoma, because that's the best win left out there for Texas to get. So if they end up playing Kansas, who's ranked 25th, or Kansas State, or one of these, actually they play each other this week. So, one of them was ranked a little bit higher. The other one's not going to be ranked. So they're going to lose a ranked win there. If you're Texas, you're hoping you're getting Oklahoma, because that's the best win left they can put on the resume.
I'd want to win. I would want to revenge my loss, like avenge it.
I'm just saying it for committee purposes. That is the best win that's left out there for them to put on their resume. So they should hope Oklahoma wins the next 2 weeks.
It's kind of crazy how things break down though, because you're going to have a 1-loss Big Ten non-champion that's going to have an argument, right? If Ohio State loses to Michigan or Michigan loses to Ohio State,
Ohio State does, Michigan doesn't, and I've been clear about that. I think you can make a way better case for Ohio State to get in with 1 loss than you can with Michigan.
Are you saying that because of the home and away kind of thing, like going on the road going to Ann Arbor?
Just because you guys have those 2. I mean, we're sitting there at that point with a win over Penn State on the road, which is impressive.
Okay, yeah,
you guys, you would still have you would still have a Penn State win and a Notre Dame win. Your resume is just going to stack up better than ours would with 1 loss. I still don't think you get in, but
yeah, I mean, for the record, I think Florida State is a team that, Gene, you talk about it being the perfect year for the 18 playoff. 100% agree with you. I think you got 7 teams that have legit chances to win the national championship this year. I don't believe in that Florida State team. I understand where they're at, and I respect them for that. I don't think they're a team that's serious contenders this year. I think they're having a great year. They're begging to be beat, and I think if they lined up with any of these other 7 teams in the top 8, they lose that game. Now, with that said, I think, you may see Florida State in that ACC championship game and lose, and then I think that's when things really get interesting, because of course, if Georgia handles business and, they hold serve against Bama, they're automatically going to be in. But, if some of those 1-loss teams go into their conference championship games and ultimately pull off that win, then you're going to be looking at that last spot like, oh, like maybe, who deserves to be in more? Alabama because they knocked off number 1, or Texas because they have the head-to-head win over Alabama. So like I think that's when things start to get interesting.
I completely agree with you.
The ACC having a one-loss champion makes it murky. That is good news for Alabama or the loser of Michigan, Ohio State if it's a very close game. Because at that point, are you weighing on one loss? Obviously Louisville would have the ACC championship, but it's going to be a hard conversation for somebody to sit there and convince them that a one-loss Louisville team is better than a one-loss Ohio State team or a one-loss Michigan team.
Completely agree with you. I think the biggest thing you got to look at is if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC title game, how many people do they leapfrog? And also, here's this, right? If Ohio State loses to Michigan, you said it with the resume, and Texas wins the Big 12. Your argument is for number 4 would be Texas or Ohio State. That's a crazy argument right there.
Texas is going to get in.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's a very
Alabama beating Georgia is the game that really lights the fire for chaos here if it happens. Because
and not to mention, Bill, I'll let you finish real quick, but just throwing it out there, Georgia's going to be a one-loss team as well. So they're going to have full claim to that number 4 spot as well. I get it's the SEC championship game, but I think they would have as good of an argument as anybody as well. They got 3 ranked wins at that point. And
the madness could ensue if Oregon beats Washington. So then you have a bunch of one-loss conference champions winners, and you have a bunch of – like Oregon beats Washington like we expect in the Pac-12 title game. We all agree that that's going to happen, right?
They're in.
And Texas wins the Big 12, and Alabama beats Georgia, which, Shally, you've been on record a couple times saying Alabama looks like the best team right now in the country in the SEC at minimum. You could have one-loss Michigan or one-loss Ohio State, one-loss Oregon, one-loss Washington, which they would kind of be eliminated by losing to Oregon, one-loss Alabama, one-loss Georgia, one-loss Texas.
Alabama beating Georgia is awful news for the loser of Ohio State, Michigan. That pretty much seals the deal. One of them is not getting in. Alabama beating Georgia, it's impossible not to put Alabama in. If Oregon beats Washington, they're a one-loss Pac-12 champion. They're in 100%. You're gonna have an undefeated Big Ten champ who is absolutely in, and then it comes down to
Florida State loses.
Yeah, I mean, but that's all bad news for Georgia. I will say this: if depending on how everything else plays out, and there's still a million different scenarios, if they lose to Alabama and other things don't go their way, Georgia's not going to make the playoff.
I agree.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think there's a world, even with Bama knocking off Georgia, they don't make the playoff.
No,
you got your Big Ten undefeated champ. You would have Florida State is an undefeated ACC champion. If Washington can win that game, they'd be an undefeated Pac-12 champion. So I think all 3 of those teams are in.
But Washington, Oregon doesn't matter. The winner of Washington, Oregon is in. There's no way one of those two teams is making it.
But I'm saying in this scenario, you got 3 teams that are still undefeated. That final spot would come down to a one-loss Big 12 champion in Texas that beat Alabama versus a one-loss Alabama team that just beat Georgia. I'm saying in that scenario.
Oh, you're saying I thought you meant that Georgia could not make it if they.
No. I'm saying Bama being the one-loss SEC champ, having a head-to-head loss against Texas, I'd be really curious to see how they sort that out. Because
it sounds crazy. I would still put Bama in over Texas. I
just don't know how you can.
They're the hottest.
Like I get it. The team that Bama's playing like now isn't that same team that Texas played back then. I get that, but I think still head to head, and your conference champion.
I think if they play tomorrow, Alabama routes them.
And it was in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, dude. I don't know how you justify that. I don't. I mean, because you're looking, they're both going to have one loss. So the next tiebreaker is conference champion. They're both conference champions. The next thing on the list is head to head. Texas beat them in Tuscaloosa. I don't know how
convincingly at that.
Yeah, I don't know how you could. Man,
you're making my case for me. I'd rather that happen.
I get it. Florida State's the key there then, because if Florida State remains undefeated, then you're picking between a one-loss Georgia, Alabama, and Texas team. That's ugh, good luck.
All right, well, let's get into some previews for this week. Different games we're going to preview.
No, we're not doing this again. We did this last year. We're not doing this again. You tried this last year.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're not doing this again. You kind of got away with it last year too. We're not doing it again.
I'll
sit here and talk to myself for 5 minutes. I don't even care. We're addressing. We are addressing what happened in Happy Valley.
Oh, there was a game Saturday?
Yeah. You do work on weekends. I know you work hard. I know you work on the weekends. So you might have missed it. I understand.
He was probably busy at noon. You know.
I know
Gene.
I was off. Look, I'll be very clear. If we want to talk about the cheating scandal at Michigan, we can do that. That's fine.
You can deflect all you want.
The question is, do you think Franklin was smart enough to change the signs that were already stolen?
That is a hilarious question.
It's funny because
that is a hilarious question,
because you probably definitively couldn't say yes because it's James Franklin,
right? That's why it's funny.
But I would hope so.
Like, I think James is the kind of guy like, oh, they think we're going to change him. Let's keep him the same. It's going to really fool him.
Reverse psychology.
All right, but where are we going on the docket first, Control?
I'm just going to talk about Michigan, but say if you would do it this way. Listen, you didn't give me any credit last year, and we blew you out last year. You sat on this program last week and said you guys were going to win by 2 touchdowns.
I did.
And now we're just not going to talk about the game.
What do we need to talk about? Penn State blew it. James Franklin stinks. The Michigan didn't throw the ball one time in the second half. They ran the ball 175 straight plays. What do you want to talk about? Drew Aller couldn't move the ball because their offense is anemic. What do you want to talk about?
We're getting somewhere now.
We don't need to get anywhere.
I'm trying to get it out of you.
James Franklin, James Clifford Franklin, the big red dog, needs to get out of Penn State because he can't win the big game. You had everything you wanted. You had Jim Harbaugh not on the sidelines. You had everything you wanted. The game was in Happy Valley. You had 2 cracks at 2 very faulty teams, and you lost both of them.
That's rich.
Saying what it is.
Well, I don't think it. I mean, they were in both games for sure. I mean, I don't think
Who cares
that
you played to win the game. Hello.
I'm literally trying to defend you here.
You
I'm
don't
saying
need to.
Cottrell's acting like they didn't have a shot to win the Ohio State game, and I think
no, that's not what I was saying. I just said he said 2 faulty programs, and last time I checked, my team's undefeated. Bill, I think your team's undefeated at the moment. I just think that's rich coming from a guy that's got 2 losses on their program.
Guys, I have an undefeated team too. Georgia has not lost the game.
Texas has been actively trying to lose every week. They're like, hey, we want to make the playoff, but hey, let's see who's going to take it from us.
I will say Texas and Washington are starting to border on like begging to get beat territory.
Yeah.
They're getting real close.
But I will say this. I've always said this, and I say it again. I have 2 teams I root for. Penn State and the team I picked to win the college football playoff. This year, that team is Texas. So I am a Texas fan for the rest of the season.
All right, so you can't root for Georgia then?
I won't.
Okay.
I mean, I might root for them in a game versus somebody, but I will not call them my team. Like, I might want them to beat Ohio State or Michigan. Like, we all have a rooting interest. Like, who do you want to win Sunday? But it won't be my team. It won't be like me celebrating a victory. Me celebrating picking the college football champion is fine. Me celebrating Georgia because they're not really my team is not fine. So we'll make that very clear. We got to preview games, though. We're at a specific time. Cottrell, start with the previews, please.
All right, so first game we got the Utah Utes traveling to Arizona to take on the Wildcats.
Yawn. Why are we talking about this game? Why?
Be right.
Who cares? They no real inclination. I'll take Arizona to win the football game. I think Utah's falling apart at the seams. Give me Arizona.
I'm taking this in pick 'em, so I'll pass to speed things up.
All right. Well, I like Arizona as well. I'm with Gene on this one. I think Arizona's going to be able to score. Arizona's looked, very, very good offensively these last few weeks, and it's nice to see them in the top 25 because normally that's not where you see Arizona football at. And I think they take care of business against Utah. Utah is struggling offensively, and I know they had a decent game against Washington, but at the end of the day, their offensive deficiency is why they couldn't move the ball down the field to tie that game, potentially send it to overtime. So I like Arizona to win it at home.
Let's get in. Come on. Let's get into the 7:30 game. Let's get into the 3:30 game. Let's go.
All right. So next game we got, I'm going to go with a game that I think is the second best game of the day. We're going to go Georgia traveling to Tennessee, take on those Volunteers.
Unfortunately, I'm picking this game. I will abstain as I have a picking interest for the football game.
Interesting.
I will do the same.
That's crazy because we're all three picking that game. So I'll give slight preview. You got Georgia, obviously undefeated team, and you also have Tennessee, who is tough place to go play. So I think if the game that wasn't going on that we're about to get into wasn't happening, I think this would be the game of the weekend. But last game, we got Washington traveling to Corvallis, take on Oregon State in a game that they are the underdogs in.
And they're in the underdogs for every reason they should be. I'm taking Oregon State in this football game. Washington has been begging to lose, and I think they get their wish this week. They're going to go into Corvallis. Oregon State's going to win the football game. They're going to be able to defend better than Washington, and that offense will be able to move the football down the field. That crowd will be raucous. Washington can get accused of the look ahead to the Pac-12, but whatever you want to call it, I think Oregon State wins the football game. I got Oregon State outright.
Man, Corvallis is a tough place to play. If you're not familiar, the fans and the students are right on top of you on that stadium. They have those damn thunderstick things that they sit there and just bang on the wall a goddamn game. It gets really loud. It is this. I think this is the game. I think this comes down to DJU. I really do. I think if we see vintage, old school DJU and he puts up a big game, I think the Beavers win this game. I really do. Because I mentioned a couple minutes ago, Washington has been hanging on that edge of almost just waiting for somebody to step up and beat them, and they're starting to look like they're playing with like the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I think you're seeing it. I think the pressure of staying undefeated and not being in the top four, I think it's all starting to weigh on the kids. And I agree with Gene. I think they get their wish this weekend. I think they're going to go up to Oregon State, and I think they're going to lose.
So I'll go off and be on my ledge here. I got the Huskies winning this game. I do think they've been trying to lose, and I say it all the time. If you show me that you're trying to lose, I'm going to pick against you. The one time that I think this is going to be different is because, Gene, you talk about the look ahead, and I do think that would be a factor in this game if the Oregon game was next week. But next week, they're going up against Washington State, who only has 4 wins right now. I know Washington State was the hot team earlier on in the year, but that's not a game that the Huskies are looking forward to anymore. I think the Huskies are fully aware that if they win this game, they are pretty much one game away from submitting their spot in the college football playoff. So I think, I think DeBoer is going to have it in the locker room that they are the underdogs, and I think that's going to put a chip on their shoulder. And so I fully expect them to go into Oregon State and to go win that football game. I think that offense is still, high powered as can be. I think they're going to go there, put up 35 points. And if you put up 35 against that Oregon State team and DJU puts up more, so be it. I just don't see that happening. So I got the Huskies to go on the road and win that game.
I can't wait. Looking forward to it. We will
game of the day.
100% game of the day. 7:30. I know what I'll be doing. We get into college football pick'em now.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm a little embarrassed at this record after going 0-3. However, my super dog record is right up there with Shalley's. I will be passing him shortly.
We're gonna have to do some math on that down there. My super dog record. See where we stand.
It's the most points. You're adding losses. It's 119 to 114 to 105. Adding our regular season losses and then
That's
pretending
true.
that's not.
But we also add in our regular season wins as well, though.
Are we?
Yeah.
Well, then I'm ahead. No, I'm down by 2. All right, Shalley, College Control. What's the order this week?
All right, so Gene, we'll let you go first.
Breaking my losses out of the way.
I didn't say that.
Sure.
I went first NFL. We'll let you go first here. Bill, you go second, then I'll round things off for us.
All right. Well, I'll start with this one. You want to talk about a team that's been begging to lose. You want to talk about a team that has really looked bad recently. That's North Carolina. Give me Clemson -6.5 over UNC. UNC's looked terrible. I don't care if they're winning football games. They look terrible. I think Clemson beats them. I think they rout them. Second game on the docket. This is a little bit local for me, but this team's been playing much, much, much better. Give me Temple +7.5 over UAB. Book it. Temple might win this game outright. I love Temple this week over UAB. Temple is tougher. Common opponents. UAB got slaughtered by Navy. Temple put it to them. Tougher football teams are going to win this football game. I like Temple +7.5. Give me Tennessee +10.5 over Georgia. I love Tennessee to cover this 10.5 point spread. I think it'll be a very, very close football game. I think Georgia might get out of there by the skin of their teeth and a field goal win. But I love Tennessee in this come home game. Big game for Tennessee. I think they beat the spread and cover versus Georgia. And for my super dog, talking about teams that are reeling, there's no way I understand BYU is not great, but there's no way on God's green earth that Oklahoma should be laying 24.5 versus anyone right now. I'll take BYU +24.5 over a reeling Oklahoma team to pick up some more super dog points.
All righty. I'll start off this. I'm going to go against Gene with Georgia, Tennessee. I think Georgia blows the doors off Tennessee at home. I think Tennessee had their magic moment last year, beating Alabama and carrying the goalpost and dumping them in the Tennessee River and every other damn thing in the world. This Tennessee team this year is nowhere near as good as last year. They honestly probably shouldn't be ranked. Georgia is literally in full stride right now. They're healthy. I don't see any way in hell they go into Tennessee this weekend and play badly at all. I think they blow the doors off Tennessee and Joe Milton. I think Georgia puts up 40. I'll say that right now. I think Georgia wins big, 42-23, something like that. I don't think it's a game. I don't think it's close. I think Georgia's in control the whole time. Second game, I'm going to go USC -6.5 at home against UCLA. UCLA, rumors came out today, they're firing Chip Kelly. Me and Cottrell both agree their star quarterback that started the season, Dante Moore, is probably going to hit the portal. He got benched for no reason. I think there's a lot of animosity and a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with that football team. They managed 7 measly points last week in a really bad home loss. I think Caleb Williams' last home game, I think he goes out and balls out. It's a rivalry game, crosstown game. I like USC to cover the 6.5 there. My last game is a game we talked about earlier as well. I like Arizona +1.5 at home. I think they win the game outright. I think Utah's done a yeoman's job of hanging in this year without, what started out to look like they were going to Cam Rising back week 2, week 3 maybe. They've played with backup quarterbacks all year. Defense has won a couple of games, big games for them. They've knocked off a couple big teams. They're going on the road again, though. Arizona is a team that's on the rise in the Pac-12 right now. They're playing just as good about as anybody not named Oregon in the conference the last 3 weeks. At home, I like them. I think they win the game outright, but I'll take the 1.5. My super dog, I'm going to stay in the Pac-12. Talk about a look-ahead game. Oregon is going to Arizona State, laying 24.5. I think it's a lot. They have Oregon State next week, which is a huge game. And Arizona State's defense isn't bad. They've given the other teams scares this year. I think they play good enough defense in the first half to keep them in it. Again, I don't think Oregon is ever in any danger of losing the football game, but I think Arizona State steals me some Superdog points.
You guys surprised me with Superdog. I was expecting one of two directions, and neither one of you took it. I'll get to that when I get to my pick'em. This week, I don't really have anything fun for you. Like Gene talked about during NFL, you going with the favorites. I love the favorites this week. I like first one. I like Alabama covering 44.5 versus Chattanooga. I know 45.5 is an absolutely insane number, but look, Alabama's in a spot right now where they're number 8 in the country, and they got to start to put up some skill points. And so the style points. I think this is a spot where Nick Saban and company, they're going to try and put up 70 just to, put their name up there, get that momentum going before that Auburn game next week. And so I think they cover that 44.5. It might be 42-0 at halftime. Second game, I like Georgia to stomp a mud hole in Tennessee this year. I think they cover that 10.5, and they cover it rather easy. Tennessee's best win this entire year is Kentucky. I don't know how they're sitting in the top 20, and their best win all season is Kentucky. When you see them go in big games, they ultimately lose them. And I saw the game last week against Missouri. If they got stomped like that to Missouri, I think Brock Bowers and Lat McConkey are going to go in there and not cover 10.5 points. Get out of here. I love Georgia cover those points there. Last game, I'm going against my alma mater here. I like Ball State to cover minus 12.5 versus Kent State. Kent State might be the worst FBS program in the country right now. And Ball State's in a position where I know they only have 3 wins, but they play everybody tough. They played Toledo tough, who was a really good back team this year. They've played everybody they lost to has been a close game outside of Georgia earlier on in the year. So I do like Ball State to cover that 12.5 rather easy. In my super dog this week, I thought you guys had your pick of the litter in the Big Ten. I think Minnesota covers 27.5 versus Ohio State, but ultimately I'm rolling with Maryland to cover 19.5 versus Michigan because I think they cover just a little bit more than what Minnesota does. I think both these teams are looking ahead to next week, and we saw it last year with the Maryland game for Ohio State and the Illinois game for Michigan. These teams, they can't help it. I understand every coach is going to drill in their head to play the game that's in front of them, but they know this is what their season's about. So I fully expect Minnesota and Maryland to both cover, but I'm picking Maryland to cover that 19.5 versus Michigan at home.
Can I make another small bet with you?
Sure.
I guarantee you, Kent State covers that 12.5.
The hell kind of bet is this? Before you do anything, I'm only asking this because have you seen Kent State play football this year?
They're terrible.
Like, bro, there are high school teams that might be able to beat them.
I'm telling you right now, Kent State covers the 12.5.
Side bet.
You'll see.
Okay,
But
I guess we will.
Let's get into UFC, and then we got our top 5. UFC recap shouldn't be too much. There's literally 7 total rounds in 5 fights.
Yep.
It's got to be a record.
I tried to tell you guys it's going to be a banger card.
It's quick.
Action-packed.
Thomas Aspinall with a huge knockout over Sergey Pavlovich. That was a very sweet knockout. Aspinall looked great in that fight. Cottrell, you had this one right. Tell us why Thomas Aspinall is the next great heavyweight.
I picked him too.
I would say first off, I wouldn't say he's the next great heavyweight. I think he's just the guy that's there right now, holding it for the time being. But I mean, look, both these guys, they went out there. You knew what you were going to get from them. And the funny thing about it is Sergey had actually caught Tom in that first round. And, he had a chance to potentially go in Tom, but, Tom bounced back pretty quick and then ultimately ended that knockout blow. But I think right now for Tom, I think his future is crazy bright because of his versatility. So you saw him knock out a guy like Sergey, and you know what he can do on the ground as well. He has the ability to sub you, and he has the ability to, wrestle with you and just dominate in terms of control. So I think that's what you need out of a guy, because especially in that heavyweight division, you're going to have a lot of guys who are strictly brawlers who are looking to knock you out. And if they can't knock you out, then they're not going to win. So I think his future is bright. But I think if you put him in there with a Stipe or even a John Jones, I do think both of them would ultimately beat Tom at this point.
Well, Charlie, you got it right too. So tell us about Thomas Aspinall. You wanted to let us know you got that one right.
Listen, listen. You try to not talk about the game, and now like you can't even give me credit for getting the pick right. Like I don't know what the beef is.
Did you guys get the main event right?
But
no,
that'd be like us, like being like, yeah, but we didn't say you didn't get it right.
I know, it's fair. I didn't say you didn't get it right either.
No, you just ignored me, just like you did with the Penn State Michigan game.
Well, I was intentional, and I see that little helmet behind you, so you can move it.
The Delaware one.
Please. Delaware had changed their colors because it was too close to ours. That's why they're like royal blue now.
I will say this. Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prohaska was a fun fight to watch. I think Yuri kept that fight closer than I expected him to. At points in that fight, he looked like he was really bothering Alex. But Yuri said it. A lot of people said after the fight it might have been an early stoppage. Yuri said it wasn't. Alex Pereira hit him flush, hit him as clean as you can hit him. It looked to me like Yuri was out, and I feel like that if that fight continued another 3 seconds, Alex would have been full mount pounding his face. We said that in our group chat. It might have been a little early. That shouldn't be the talk of this conversation. Alex Pereira's got some serious power. I love watching him fight at this point, and I think he'll garner a lot of really good fights at 205. I do think it was kind of weird he called out Izzy after the fight. That's
money.
That wasn't the move to me.
Money. Izzy is going to make him the most money every time. So, of course, you call out Izzy. And that was your last loss. You get a chance to avenge that, and you get a chance to make probably as much money as you've ever made. Of course you do that. That's the right move there.
Yeah, but I don't think Izzy's going back to 205.
But it doesn't matter, though. Of course you call him out, because now it's, hey, I put it out there for him. If he doesn't want it, that's on him. You got to throw it out there, get the people talking, and try to make your money. Because if we're being honest, as great as Alex is, he's not a guy that's going to sell cards. And so if you put a guy like Alex Pereira against, let's say the number one contender right now should be Jamal Hill, that's not going to be a main event for a card. He's got to be a co-main and fight under somebody else. But if you're putting Alex on there with Izzy, he can go headline pretty much anywhere in the world, and people are gonna love it. So I think it's a smart move by him. And just in terms of this fight, I thought Alex looked exactly how I thought he was going to look. He was great on his feet. The leg kicks were clearly bothering Yuri. And, once Yuri closed the distance, you could see that Yuri was a lot more comfortable. But got to give credit to Alex for sticking in there and ultimately landing the knockout blow. I do think the fight was stopped a little bit early. I would have been okay if with a little bit of ground and pound there. These guys do sign up for that, but that's not the reason why he lost. I didn't think it was crazy. And then Yuri coming out afterwards and saying that it was a good stoppage. I somewhat think he was just kind of being a good sport because that's just the kind of guy that he is. But I also do think, he knows that he was out, and, a couple ground and pound shots wouldn't have made a difference in that fight. I'm just of the adage that couple ground and pound shots, that lets me know definitively that it's over. I don't like leaving any gray area. I think this one is very minor, kind of nitpicking, but give Alex all the credit in the world for getting that belt. I think he's going to hold it for a while.
I mean, there's nobody in the 205 division. Jamal Hill is the only guy that you can line him up against. Yep. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, I could read you the top 15 people in the 205 division, and you'd be like, yeah, none of those are really good fights. There's no real big up-and-comer in that division. There's no huge name that's coming out of nowhere. So I do understand why he called out Izzy in that perspective, but 205 sucks. It's really bad right now. 205 might be the worst weight class in MMA right now.
Yep.
What's next for Alex Jamal Hill? What's next for
Aspinall?
It's got to be, I would probably have him fight Stipe and then at the winner fight John. John's going to be out for a little bit, right? Like, how long is he going to be out?
They said 8 months.
8
They
months.
said
I set him up. I set him up
a
maybe
year.
March or April versus Stipe, and then have the winner go up against John Jones in September next year.
I don't know if you're going to talk Stipe into that.
The only thing that kind of like gets me against that is because they didn't even offer Stipe this fight. Because I do think if they offered to it, I do think Stipe would have took it. But I think Dana is fully aware that the biggest fight you can make right now in the heavyweight division is going to be Stipe versus John Jones. So I don't know how they're going to navigate this to make sure that fight still happens. But I don't think you see Stipe again unless it's versus John Jones or
Agreed.
John Jones says, I'm going to retire from the UFC and I'm not going to fight ever again. I think at that point, Stipe will want another crack at the belt. But I don't know what's next for Tom Aspinall. I think this is a very gray area because you have to have him unify the belt at some point. So I don't know what John's going to do. I think John only wants to fight Stipe. He said he wants to fight the heavyweight GOAT and then be done. I don't know how you make that happen now. So I truly don't know what's next for Aspinall.
They're all gone.
Ugh.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
I don't like that fight either, just like you don't. But
I don't think there's. I think the other biggest problem you have is you had all your eggs in the one basket of Jones and Stipe. Aspinall now won this fight. I don't know if there's anybody else that's really deserving of even having a title shot or getting put on that level right now. And John Jones, if we're being honest, 8 months of rehab, then he's got to go through training camp. He's probably a year out. So I don't know if Stipe even waits around that long. He, from what I read, he wanted that fight and that was it. And it was kind of like, even if he beat John Jones, he wasn't going to fight again. Like that was it. So I don't know if you even see Stipe ever again. I don't know if he waits around for John. You said 205 is bad, but you take John Jones and Stipe out of a heavyweight. Heavyweight's just as bad. So
I disagree. You got some fun guys there. Like you got Bam Bam. You got
it's fine, but they're not high level fighters. Bam Bam's fun. Like, you're gonna drink somebody's beer out of a shoe. Like, I get it all, dude. Like, I love watching them fight. Like, but there's no elite caliber fighters in that division right now. You take those two guys out.
There's a guy that's coming up that you guys all. I think Almeida is the next heavyweight that you'll see getting good fights. He just won an unanimous decision over Derek Lewis, which was an ugly, ugly fight. But he also subbed.
He laid on top of him for 24 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. But he also subbed Rosenstrike in the first round. I think that Almeida will be a guy you can hear about. The rest of that heavyweight division kind of stinks, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, outside. But the thing is, I think it's better than 205 because at the top,
205
you have
awful.
You have Aspinall, you have Sergey, and then you have Bam Bam. Like there's guys that you could kind of work with. 205, it's like you got Jamal Hill, and then like the next name you think about is like Lionheart Smith. Like, that's yucky.
205 is Magomedov. Magomed, Jan, Krylov, Johnny Walker. Like, it's so bad.
None of those guys are headlining pay-per-views.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, I really
crazy. When's the last time you had like a 205 and a heavyweight champ that couldn't headline a pay-per-view? Like, that's wild.
Everything in UFC right now is the 155, the 170, and the 185.
Yeah.
And even 135. 135 solid. You get a lot of good fights out of that.
Yep.
I will say I was very upset that Mackenzie Dern.
Facts.
I got to give credit to the guys at ringside. They were calling it before I seen it. I'm like, what are they talking about? Looks like Dern's winning this fight. And they're like, she's just leaving her chin right out there, head straight up. And then all of a sudden it was Jessica Andrade. Bang. Fight over. She's got that power. I was kind of, I wanted to see Mackenzie Dern wrestle, control, and she didn't do any of that. She had a very, very bad game plan for the fight, and it was not a good fight to watch.
It was her first fight with her new camp. I wasn't expecting her to come out there and look like that, but I definitely thought she was going to wrestle more. I get it. You went out there and you looked great on the feet against Angela Hill, but that wasn't working for you in this fight, and so I don't know why she didn't switch over to her wrestling just because she has such a strong, background in BJJ. But got to give credit to Jessica. Jessica's a fighter who I said it while I was watching the fight. I swear I've seen her fight like 17 times this year alone already. So she goes out there and she keeps winning.
All right, well, let's get into our fun segment of the night because I really wanted to get into this. We have a little time to actually spend some time on it, which is fun. Before we get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me. But we came up with 5 athletes or coaches current that we root against. We just absolutely root against. Now, I think it'll be fun to do. You guys can tell me. We didn't discuss this beforehand. But I think it would be fun to do a 5 through 1, but like a round rock, like snake style. Who's your number 5, and then go for it that way. Do you guys agree?
I like doing it that way. I feel like we might get a little drawn out though. I know we got.
I don't think
we got time, but
yeah, we're good.
5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4. We can do it. You don't have to go nuts with your breakdown. I mean, your number 1, you might go a little nuts. Why don't you start so you can finish, Cottrell? We'll do Cottrell, Bill, Gene, and we'll keep it in that realm.
So number 5 for me is sport that we just talked about. I'm gonna go UFC. I'm gonna go with Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a guy who I absolutely can't stand. If you know me, you know that I'm pretty much a player's guy. So not too many players really get under my skin. So I got to go with the fighter here. And I'm going to go with Nate Diaz. I like seeing him get knocked out. I actively root against him every time he fights. He is hilarious. Don't get me wrong. But if he's in the octagon, chances are I am rooting for his opponent to win that fight.
I'm going to make people laugh at my list because each one of them has like a nice ring to it. I'm going to piss some people off on my number 4, though. I know it, and be prepared for it because I'm going to piss you off. It's going to happen.
I am upset that I didn't think about Nate Diaz put him on my list because I hate that guy. But oh man, all right. But number 5, I'm gonna start with a funny one because I couldn't leave this sport out and I couldn't leave him out. I'm going with Patrick Reed, Captain Fatty himself. The guy gets caught cheating all the time. He's been caught cheating on camera like 3 times, and he acts like he doesn't do it, and he acts like he's better than everybody. Nobody on tour likes him. He plays on Live now, which is fine. I don't have to watch him as much, but dude, he's just a dirtbag. He's apparently a jerk off in real life too. From other people, I know a few people have actually met him or talked to him on the course. He just acts like he's better than everybody all the time, apparently. So I started him. I wanted to try to get a golfer on this list to make it funny because I know neither one of you guys are going to. But Patrick Reed starts for me, number 5.
You don't know my list.
You ain't got a golfer on your list. And if you do, I'll be shocked.
I don't have a golfer on my list. My number 5 is Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider, the mustache-wearing dork from Atlanta. I can't stand him. Games would be better without fans. We'll just not have them in the bottom half. Runs his mouth talking about the Phillies. And every year he comes into Philadelphia, he gets shelled. We take him deep. We have him exit the game early. Spencer Strider, you're my number 5. You're the best pitcher for the team I hate the most in baseball. Congratulations. I switched up. I'm going to make my number 4 my number 3. My number 4 now is James Harden. I probably should have him higher. I hate James Harden. I can't stand him. Ball does not leave his hands. The comments that what he made about Doc Rivers just made comments recently about him saying that everything changed when he didn't make the All-Star game. He started asking Doc, he wanted to run with the second team more. Doc's like, well, I know what that means. He wants to chuck up more shots. He said that they were playing their best basketball before the All-Star break, and when James didn't make the All-Star team, it was, I just need to find a way to touch the ball again, and like I don't like the way we're playing, and he's such a selfish player, and he goes in the media and martyrs himself and victimizes himself about how his situations are poor anywhere he goes. I got to be honest with you. I don't know the guy's name, but the Clippers announcer that trashed him was one of the funniest things I ever heard because not a damn word was incorrect. So my number 4 is James Harden.
He's not a system player. He is the system.
He's not a system player. He's the problem.
He's the system.
Number 4 for me, I'm going with Brian Kelly, former coach at Notre Dame, current coach at LSU. Never won a big game in his life. Every time he loses a big game, he kind of inadvertently or sometimes just very, openly and pointedly calls out his players or blames it on his players or says it's a bad effort from his team. It's never he put a bad game plan together. It's never that he's not a good coach, or it's never he, called the wrong play at the absolute wrong time. It's always a lack of effort or a lack of tackling or lack of this, lack of that. I can't stand Brian Kelly. Number 4 for me.
That is actually hilarious, Bill, because number 4 for me is also Brian Kelly. For all the reasons you gave, Brian Kelly is a guy who throws his players under the bus at every chance that he gets. And, he'll have some success and then it comes to that big game and then he loses and then it's not his fault. So he's continuously doing it. He did at Notre Dame. He's doing it now here at LSU. And I love watching him lose because I don't know what that idiot's going to say in the press conference and what's going to be the reason, because he thinks every time that it's not him. So Brian Kelly is a fun one to hate. Number 3 for me, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's the guy I can't stand. I think Bill Belichick is a guy who has benefited from having the greatest quarterback to ever play football. And he's a guy that is consistently cheating, and I feel like no one ever talks about it. I get it. The wins are always there, and that Patriot culture is undeniable, things like that. But when we talk about greatest coaches of all time and not mention the fact that this man has been caught cheating, on several different occasions, that rubs me the wrong way. And so I love seeing Bill Belichick be a guy that's failing right now.
Number 3 for me, I'm gonna stick a hockey guy in here because I absolutely cannot stand this man. I'm going Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins. I hate the way he plays. He's a dirty player. He's constantly getting penalties, suspended, cheap shots. He's always the guy that does it, and then somebody else on his team's got to fight somebody because they stand up for him. Dude, just a dirty player. The situation when he came to Philly and had the shootout goal once and went to start and scraped over the puck and moved it like 3 inches and had forfeit his shot. The whole place went nuts. Just can't stand dude. He's one of those guys, if you saw, you just want to punch him in the face. He's awful. I hate everything about him. Like I said, I can't stand dirty players. I know there's always players that you hate because they play tough or they hard, but they don't cross the line. And you're like, oh, I hate that guy, but if he played for my team, I would love him. Marchand's not one of those guys. I would hate him if he's a flyer. I don't like dirty players. I hate scumbag stuff. And I hate the Bruins on top of that. So fuck Boston. Brad Marchand, number 3.
You guys already stole my number 3. My number 3 is Brian Kelly. There was nothing that pissed me off more than watching this man abandon a team that had a shot at a college football playoff spot in the middle of a season and all of a sudden grow a Southern accent overnight talking to LSU. I can't stand frauds, and Brian Kelly is one of the biggest ones. I actually actively rooted against Notre Dame the entire time he was there, and I actively root for them now with Marcus Freeman. It's the truth. I don't like Notre Dame. I have no love for that team. I just hated Brian Kelly that much. Brian Kelly's a scumbag. He did it to 2 universities where he just left them high and dry for the next big thing. I can't wait till LSU leaves him high and dry like they did to Ed O. My number 2 is going to piss some people off, guys.
Oh, this is the one that's going to piss people. You bumped them up from 4 to 2
because it makes sense.
Okay, I thought it was going to. Okay, I thought Brian Kelly was the guy. Okay, I'm locked in.
My number 2 is I'll use Matt Eberflus as the captain of it right now because we're talking about guys that are active right now. But my number 2 is underqualified white NFL head coaches. I'm sorry. Let's call it like it is. There's guys like Brian Flores, Jim Caldwell, all these coaches without jobs. Anthony Lynn, what he did, but you have Brandon Staley, Matt Eberflus, and to add on to my number 2, which is kind of cheating, but that's okay, I'll add on the liquored up owners, Stephen Ross, John Elway, when John Elway was general manager, not interviewing, just blowing through and being drunk during Brian Flores' interview. I root against underqualified white head coaches that get jobs over Eric Bieniemy, over all these qualified African-American coaches. It pisses me off to the absolute core. That's my number 2. I wonder what my number 1 is. I'll get there.
Number 2 for me, I'm going for a guy Gene already talked about, James Harden. Couldn't stand him when we got him. Didn't buy into the Kool-Aid. Didn't buy into the hype because I know what he is. Zebras don't change their stripes. I knew it was only a matter of time before he pulled his crap here, and then he did. Forced his way out. He's now on the Clippers. They haven't won a goddamn game since he got there and he started playing. Dude's a cancer. No way around. He's a cancer. He's an organization ruiner. Just a scumbag. Like Gene said, he always tries to make himself the martyr when he's really, the offender. Never takes responsibility for his actions, what he says, anything. He's one of those guys that Mike Singletary always talked about. Can't win with him. Don't want to win with him. Can't do it. Won't do it. James Harden's that guy. Clippers aren't going to win with him either. I got bad news for you. So James Harden, number 2 for me.
Number 2 for me, I'm sticking with the coaches. You guys know I love my players, so I'm sticking with the coaches. I'm going to Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney is a guy who I love to hate. He's always out there running his mouth about how, players shouldn't get paid and how if he said, before, if players start to get paid, that's going to be the day that I quit. And we're here now, and players are getting paid, and somehow he forgot how to coach. It's real interesting. Before, when Clemson was getting in all those 5-star kids, and they were going off and winning national championships and winning Orange Bowls and Sugar Bowls and all that stuff. But now you got the transfer portal being a thing. You got players getting NIL deals from other big time programs. And now all of a sudden, Clemson is just as average as, any other school at this point. I think it's absolutely hilarious. Him going after the fan, I think that's just him being frustrated with himself, is that, and the reality of it is he's no longer an elite coach. He can't recruit elite anymore, and he can't coach his players to have his back like he did before. It's a completely different ball game. And that's why a lot of people don't want to go play for Dabo Swinney. I love seeing his downfall. It is absolutely phenomenal.
I love that. Give me your number 1.
Number 1 for me is the other, cheater himself. I've been pretty consistent with this. I had Bill Belichick earlier. I'm just going to go to the college ranks and my rival here. I'm going with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a guy who, it's fun to say all those things and be that way, somebody, stands on third and think they hit a triple, things like that. Those sayings are cute, but then when it comes out that you were 0-5 against the program beforehand, and then, you start to steal signs, and then you only lose 3 games from that point on. I think that's real interesting. And you could bring up the talent being at Michigan and him recruiting better. That's fine. I hear you on those points, but that didn't stop Georgia from stomping a mud hole in you the first time you're in the playoff. And that didn't stop a TCU team that clearly didn't deserve to be a national championship from hanging 50 on you. So I just think it's real interesting now that, those advanced scouting games. Those are a little bit closer. And, those are games where they're on the opposite end. But, you talk a lot of hot shit when you're winning and cheating. So I'm going with Jim Harbaugh at number 1.
I'm going with an Ohio State guy at number 1. He's not technically active right now, but, he still commentates, so I'm going to use him. Because I'm going to go to the OG scumbag of all college coaches in the history of the sport of goddamn football. Urban Meyer, Mr. Enable serial killers on his team, rapists, wife beaters, everybody. Urban Meyer, if you could tackle somebody, come play football for me. I don't give a shit what you do off the field. I'll cover it all up. Let's see, Aaron Hernandez. Let's not talk about Zach Smith and had his wife go out, make an ass out of her and go out on public and lie about it, saying, "Oh, we didn't know." And then the text messages came out from the wife sending her right to his wife, "You got to help me." "Oh, I didn't see those text messages." You right, you did it. And then Urban last year paying tribute to his wife, having some, early 20s girl grind up on him in his bar, all drunk, barely hold his head up. Number 1 for me, great coach. I won't say he's not a good coach, but as a human being, as the biggest scumbag as there ever was, Urban Meyer, number 1.
I will say the one nice thing is that most of the things that he mentioned there did not happen while he was at Ohio State. Most of them.
Oh,
Well,
sorry, I'll let you off the hook for Aaron Hernandez. My bad.
I think that you guys out there, first one in the chat, get my number one. I'm gonna wait. We're gonna pause, and if you guys can't get my number one in the chat within a minute, then we'll end the show. You guys got to get my number one in the chat. You guys know who I hate more than anyone in all sports. Type it. Type it. I'll wait. I'll sit here and wait. I need to see it. The first comment saying who I hate the most, put it in the comments.
This is so easy.
It's the easiest thing you could ever say. Now, the problem is it's a little delayed from they're seeing it to when we're seeing it. So we'll start seeing it on the right side in a second. No, it's not Mario Cristobal, Alex. Not Jerry Jones, Bose.
We already covered Jerry Jones.
Yeah, we covered him.
This is so
How do you guys not get this?
He's the all-time leader, and you got to be kidding me. He's like, this is Christ. He used to play.
Because we're on a time crunch. Not Jim Irsay, not James Harden.
Is nobody really getting this?
Nobody got it. My number one player I root against the most is Ben Simmons. Benjamin Simmons, he left his J at home. You want to talk about a gutless coward? This guy is the biggest fraud there ever was to play professional sports. He sat out because he was sad, and then he had back issues that he lied about. He's played a total of 60 games the last 2.5 years. The guy's a bum. I'm so sick of hearing about Ben Simmons. This guy got traded from Philadelphia to Brooklyn. He's been nothing but a disappointment in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's been trying to get rid of him. They can't stand him. A loser. Guy's been a loser since he was at LSU when he said, oh, I'm not going to play in the tournament because I'm going to get ready for the draft because I don't really care about this team. I just wanted to highlight myself. Selfish loser. Couldn't even dunk on Trae Young. Dork. That's my number one. Ben Simmons. And to add a little fun one, you know who I actively root against? I actively root against this dork Jason Ashworth that plays softball. So that dork can get it too. All right, I'm done. Let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me. Cottrell, start us off.
So I got a little video here. I know we're up against it. I'll let it play, and I'll let you guys see why it's my You Gotta Be Kidding Me.
I want to thank the Lord. I want to thank Coach Harbaugh. Fucking love you, man. Love the shit out of you, man. This is for you. For this university, the president, our AD, we got the best players, best university, best alumni in the country. Love you guys. These fucking guys right here. These guys right here, man. These guys did it. These guys did it, man. Talk to him, man. Love you.
Every week, they give me another reason to use them every single week. Regular season game, it's not like Jim is sick in the hospital recovering from something. He's not coaching because he got caught cheating. Come on. I need you guys to get a grip. Penn State's good win, but come on.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh man, I'm ready for I'm ready for Ohio State, Michigan.
Ryan Day's still crying about Lou Holtz somewhere, so I mean it's fine. I'm going. You know, it's funny. It's funny. I just totally realized this too. You know, I didn't do this on purpose, but mine is also an ex-Ohio State coach, guy they got rid of because he couldn't cut it. So they brought Ryan Day in. But I'm gonna go with Luke Fickell. Wisconsin? Played Northwestern this weekend. Got inside their 35 5 times on fourth down. Didn't elect to kick a field goal one time. Went for it all 5 times. Didn't make it all 5 times. Lost by 10 points. Pretty goddamn brutal. Maybe that's something Urban Meyer taught him. I'm not sure. I don't know how that goes. But you can't go 0 for 5 on fourth downs inside your opponent's 35-yard line and lose your kids a football game like that. Can't do it. It's bad coaching. You know, all humor aside with him, you know, being an ex-Ohio State guy. Hasn't had a good year in Wisconsin, first year in Wisconsin. I don't know if the moment's too big for him. Kind of happened when he was at Ohio State too. Maybe he's not a Big Ten, maybe he's not a major program type guy. But this week for me, Luke Fickell, terrible strategy.
on, you gotta be kidding me.
My you got to be kidding me is the NCAA for denying James Madison a football postseason waiver. Come on. You want to see the best teams play in the postseason, and you're denying this team a waiver and not allowing them to play in any type of postseason action for NCAA. It's kind of bullcrap. But because they just moved up from Division 1AA or whatever, Division 2, whatever you guys want to call it. James Madden deserves to be in a bowl contention in postseason play, and it's wrong that they're not. So for that reason, the NCAA.
On, you gotta be kidding me.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, episode 162. That's College Cottrell. That's Scholastic Shally. I'm the NFL genius. Any final thoughts?
Nothing.
Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are signing